Welcome into this Week 11 edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm Mike Renner, joins JP Acosta as always. JP, it was a big slate for the NFC. I feel like we found out a little, even if we didn't find out a lot. I think we found out a little about the NFC today.
Yeah, I feel like this was sort of Separation Sunday. I'd even include the AFC in that. It feels like teams started to separate themselves from legitimate contenders to ones that we have a lot more question marks about. But overall, I actually thought this was a really fun week top to bottom.
Yeah, if you guys are looking, I have a new background here. I am in Joshua Tree, California. I'm going to a wedding tomorrow. Not a weekend wedding. A Monday wedding. I must love this person very much to be going during football season on a Monday wedding. But here I am, still doing the podcast. But the one thing I do love, out in the West Coast, I'm rapping here. It's 8:45 p.m. Usually I'm rapping these shows at like 1 a.m. I'm hurting. It's 8:45. I might do something after this show, JP.
Well, over here in Florida, it is 11:45. So I'm gonna get done here and go to sleep. Maybe watch some film, but it's no rest for the wicked over here.
Yeah, it hit a little different though. The Dolphins Madrid game at 6:30 in the morning was not what I wanted to wake up to, but we powered through, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But let's talk about Sunday Night Football, the game that just ended. Eagles win 16-9. Back-to-back weeks, they take off those NFC North foes, hold both of them to single digits, not even double digits, two of the biggest competitions. And my big number from this one, 0 for 5. That was the Lions on fourth down, the worst in the Dan Campbell era. Has the honeymoon phase for Dan Campbell as a play caller ended, or was this just the Eagles defense is now a house coming out of their bye week, similar to the way it was last season?
Well, I feel like this is a little bit of both, where obviously you're not playing the Commanders' defense, so things are going to be a little bit rougher. But I do think the conversation about the Eagles needs to change to this is the best defense in football. Their margin for error is so wide because the defense gives them every opportunity to go and try and make big plays. I think this game was such a momentous one for the Eagles defense because their defensive line took over the game. Like, it was very clear from the jump. The Lions really couldn't run the ball, and they also didn't try to run the ball a lot. I think that was probably one of my biggest takeaways from this game was that the Lions just did not try to run the ball or get a run game going. They only ran the ball 21 times for 74 yards, 3.5 yards per carry. Their success rate on the ground was about 40%. They had a negative 0.47 EPA per play as a running team in this game. And it felt like between the tackles, that's where we all highlighted during the lead up to this game. It was the guards versus the defensive tackles for the Eagles. It felt like they were just housing them. Moro Ajomo was awesome. Jordan Davis arguably played his best game as an Eagle, and Jalen Carter was consistently just wrecking stuff in this game. But I thought the most underrated part of what they did was they were just batting passes. And the batted passes are such momentum killers. It feels like when you're like watching basketball and they commit a dead ball turnover, and it's like, oh, you're so close to doing something great, and you pass the ball out of bounds, and now you got to get the ball up. But Jalen Carter had 3 batted passes. Jordan Davis had 3 batted passes. Ajomo's getting in on it, and the fact that they're able to do that, but also turn up their pass rush and win with that, with just their front line, it makes them so hard to beat.
Yeah, it was one of the rougher Goff games we've seen in a while. And Goff, like in the elements, they need the home field advantage with Jared Goff. You don't want to be going to Green Bay in January. You don't want to be going to Philly in January, Jared Goff. I think, it gets talked about kind of a lot in the draft process about why tools matter. But I think you saw today with Goff and how he played versus like how Josh Allen played in the elements, now that it's starting to become a factor. And you kind of just see how tools help you cut through those windy days in November, December, January. But back to the Eagles, their defense. It reminds me, we've talked about it a lot, but last year, the pre-buy, post-buy defensive turnaround. They were 28th in EPA per play pre-buy last year, 0.11 allowed, so positive EPA per play allowed last year. Post-buy, negative 0.151. So far and away, almost double. Their EPA was almost double the next best defense in the Denver Broncos over that span. They're like a utterly dominant defense down the stretch. That's what carried them to the Super Bowl. They kind of look back like that defense we saw down the stretch last season now.
I would argue that his defense might be better, especially up front. They have so many guys they can rotate in. Jalen Phillips was incredible in this game. He's been incredible for 2 straight weeks after being traded to Philadelphia, and you can tell they needed just his juice off the edge and his ability to win off the edge, but also the physicality that he has in setting the edge in the run game. Now you can rotate in Brandon Graham. You can rotate in Nolan Smith. You can rotate in Jalen Hunt. You can also have legitimately Nakobe Dean, Jahad Campbell, and Zach Bond could start everywhere else, but they just rotate guys in up front. And you have a Jomo rotating in. You have Jordan Davis rotating in. They're brought back the hockey waves of their front seven, and it keeps their stars fresh, but you also don't get a catastrophic drop-off in play. So this team is just loaded up front in defensive line, on the defensive line and the linebacker group, and it sort of masks whatever inefficiencies they might have in a secondary, even though I think Adoree Jackson played really well today.
Are we worried though about this team? So they're 8-2, right? They're atop the NFC right now, but they're not putting teams away the way they did last year, right? They don't finish games. They don't get the ball with 5 minutes left and then that's it, the way they did last season. Are we worried about that? Or is this team just too talented that they're going to figure it out eventually?
They sort of feel like last year's Chiefs to me, where it's probably a problem, but it won't matter until it won't matter until a team makes it matter. And that might not happen until the playoffs or even the Super Bowl. And even then, I don't know if that's going to happen. The Eagles are so incredibly talented, but their offense is so awful. Like, it is legitimately a horrible unit to watch. They still can't really run the ball effectively, although I do think they found a little bit of movement using counter in this game. I thought the Lions defense had a really tough time figuring out how they're going to fit counter. There were a couple plays where Aiden Hutchinson was trying to spill it. And so spilling, you hit the tackle with your inside shoulder and kind of try and force the running back to bounce to play outside instead of boxing it, where you're hitting him with your outside shoulder and your inside shoulder, and you're trying to force him to cut back to your help. So they're trying to spill it and force everything to go back outside. He tried to spill it, but he's spilling it too deep into the into the line of scrimmage. So you're just giving him, Saquon Barkley, such a long runway to build up speed, and he's going to beat every linebacker they have to the edge. But this Eagles offense is terrible at throwing the ball. This was Jalen Hurts' second worst passing performance by success rate at all this season. The worst one he had was against the Chiefs earlier this season, and it felt like it. It felt like they had no answers in the passing game. It was crazy because the Lions were playing man coverage. They were just playing man, and the Eagles couldn't do anything about it. Normally, when you play the Eagles, you can't play man coverage against them because they have dudes that are better than your dudes. And Jalen Hurts was good at putting the ball in that situation, giving the ball to them in that situation. Whether it be the wind, it wasn't a lot of pass rush. It could be the wind, it could be the cold. He was just off tonight. He did not have a great night as a passer. But this is starting to become a trend where they don't have answers. And that starts to worry me because if you don't have answers in the run game, you don't have answers in the passing game. I thought they used Jalen Hurts on like timely QB draws a lot more in this game than previous games, but I think that's because the Lions play a lot of man coverage. If they're not going to run Jalen Hurts in design situations, I'm worried about how high this offense can go.
Yeah, I do think that's kind of the rabbit in the hat that they can pull out when they need it, that they haven't had to, right, is Jalen Hurts' legs. Like, they really don't use it. That come playoff time, it's going to get factored in. We all know it. They're going to empty the clip in terms of all the run plays and all the different concepts he brings to the table. But the thing I keep going back to is I don't think Saquon's the same. I just don't see the same guy. I do not see the same guy we saw last year. And Saquon, for all his, ability, and he's a freakishly talented dude, he has never been a vision runner first. He has always been a boomer bust running back. And if you are not getting the boom, you are going to have a lot of bust runs. And that's just the way the offense is set up right now. That's not like you're going to look like you're going to have some very ugly games when that's the case. And you saw the graphic at the end of the game, 2 runs of 20 plus yards all season long. That's insane. And he just does not, when he gets out in space, he does not have the same look. And now it's obviously, it's a high bar. Like, he's still a competent quality NFL running back, but they were who they were last year because they had an elite offensive line with a freakishly, like one of the most freakish talents at running back of all time. And I think it's pretty clear he's taking a step back from that this year.
Yeah, I think part of it has been the Eagles' yards before contact. They have not been good at generating a lot of looks in the run game. But I also think Saquon hasn't done a very good job at turning those 5-yard runs into 15 and the 10-yard runs into touchdowns. That part of the offense has been missing this season. So if you're not going to have that, you're not going to have Jalen Hurts' run game, and you're not going to have a passing game that feels like it doesn't feel competent. Like, they're throwing 50-50 balls to Kylan Granson on double moves, and that's the designed route. I'm just like, what are we doing here? You have 2 of the best receivers in football, and regardless of what A.J. Brown is saying, like, you have to try and get them involved. So I have a lot of questions about what this offense can be, but at the same time, I also think it might not matter because this defense is so freaking good.
Yeah, and dude, Nakobe Dean, what he looks like. Oh gosh, the blitz at the end, the sack, David Montgomery. Oh my gosh, I mean, you worry about, because it was torn patellar tendon. That's not a for sure comeback, same guy injury. It's a very big injury. He looks more explosive. He looks better than he did last year, quite frankly. Like, following Jamison Williams on an over route for a pass breakup. Are you kidding me? Just like what he brings to the table is, John Campbell is a unique talent in his own right, but Nakobe Dean has a little like level of juice, a little level of like just pop downhill that you didn't need to add, but once you add it, you're like, oh shoot, okay.
It's intensity. Yes, he brings such a different intensity to this team. Like, you talked about the Jameson Williams crosser. He was running step for step with a Jahmyr Gibbs wheel route. Like, he just does so many little things that don't show up in the stat book when you look at this Eagles team. But when you go and watch them play, it's clear that Kobe Dean just makes his small little imprints on the game that matter so much.
Yeah, Eagles defense is back, and the rest of the NFC is worried. And we'll get to the rest of the NFC after a quick break.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, Seahawks at Rams, the other big game in the NFC. Rams hold on for the 20-19 win. The big number in this one, though, 4 interceptions from Sam Darnold. The Darnold we kind of feared, right? We said no one's really made him play from behind, have to drop back pass, make Darnold play left-handed, so to speak. He was playing left-handed all day. It looked like this was the Week 18 playoff Darnold, unfortunately, that we saw last year.
This was, if Chris Shula is not at the top or near your top of head coaching candidates this offseason, this was the showcase game.
Yep.
And for me, it started with what they did in the secondary. Like, Chris Shula has drawn a little bit of blood from a stone when it comes to the secondary, where you have Darius Williams at 31 years old, Jacoby Durant, who might be sort of a more in-between guy. Quentin Lake didn't really play in this game. You have Roger McCreary playing at nickel. Cam Kinchins was awesome in this game. And I think Cam Kinchins might be the best defensive back Les Snead has drafted, in just his ability to play downhill from that quarter's position. But what they did was they forced Sam Darnold to eat his vegetables as a passer. There were no explosive plays in this game. There weren't a lot of explosive passes. You forced Sam Darnold to sort of matriculate the ball downfield, and without a run game that's successful or explosive, you're forcing Sam Darnold to hold on to the ball. I wish I had Sam Darnold's time to throw in this game. I think I can go find it, but it felt like he was holding on to the ball a lot longer. And when Sam Darnold's holding on to the ball, as we've seen in his career, he's bound to make a mistake because he's going to try and throw the ball into tight windows that he really can't fit the ball in.
Yeah, to go to harp on Cam Kinchens for just a second, because he had 2 picks in this game, and he's a year 2 guy, had 4 picks as a rookie. He was one of those guys where when you're watching him on tape at Miami, I was like, man, he's got some holes in this game. He's kind of I don't want to say scheme specific player, but like he's got to go to the right spot. And then once the Rams drafted him, I'm just like, oh, he went to the right spot. That's exactly like where I would want him to go in terms of the defense they play, because it is, like you said, so top down. And Cam Kinchens, when he has eyes on things in front of him, he's so good. And in this game, 2 great breaks on balls. So 4 picks. Darnold I think the big thing, though, that I came away from this game was you had the F Darnold performance and you had a 61-yard field goal to win at the end. On the road. You had the F Darnold performance on the road and you had a 61-yard field goal still to win it at the end. I think I'm not that upset if I'm a Seahawks fan watching this game. Obviously, we all knew this was a possibility. Everyone, you'd be lying to yourself if you didn't think this game was still – Sam Darnold was still capable of a game like this, right? He'll always be capable of a game like this. But in a game like this, they almost still beat probably one of, if not your biggest challenger in the NFC. I think you got to be like, okay, we still have a roster that can go toe-to-toe with anyone that is right there at the top of the NFC. I still feel very good about the Seahawks. I don't come away from this game worried about them whatsoever in my eyes.
This was a monster game by the Seahawks defense. Yeah. Like, that's really what I kind of came away from it thinking, was this Seahawks defense is legit and they are very real, and they're able to just constrict and make things so difficult on opposing offenses that it's just so hard to get anything going against the Seahawks defense. If we're looking at the Rams week over week, if we're looking at total EPA, their game against the Seahawks today was the 4th game the Rams have had all season with a negative total EPA. It's the 4th game, and it's the first time they've had a negative EPA, according to True Media. This is the first time they've had a negative EPA in a game since week 6 against the Ravens when Puka Nacua got hurt. This is the first negative passing EPA per game per play game that Matthew Stafford has had this season. Like, the Seahawks defense, and I thought what they did so well was they were able to defend the run out of those light boxes. And then once they were able to do that, that defensive line was starting to take off a little bit. They were starting to tee off because Matthew Stafford, it felt like he was sort of just uncomfortable in the pocket, where he was just, it wasn't just sacks for the Seahawks defense. It was just getting close. It's like when you hear the phrase, you hear the footsteps. You see a lot with receivers who drop passes. They're like, oh, he heard the footsteps from the defensive back. That's why he dropped it. It felt like Matthew Stafford heard the footsteps from this defensive line and all the hits and the pressures, and it just led to them being just a little bit off. There was a sick throw Matthew Stafford had on a dagger on 3rd down where he threw it a little bit behind Devontae Adams, and it resulted in incompletion. But that's the type of thing where without that pressure, that's probably an explosive play. But this Seahawks defense can win at every level.
Yeah, in this game, they held the Rams offense to a 30% success rate on the ground. That would rank dead last in the NFL if it were over the full season, and a 43% success rate through the air, which would rank 27th if we're comparing it to all teams for the whole season so far. So, like, they turned them into a awful offense. They turned one of the best offenses in the NFL into just stagnant. And if it weren't for those 4 turnovers, again, I think they probably roll away with this game. Seattle does. So right now, as we stand, obviously this vaults the Rams to the top of the NFC West at 8-2, Seahawks 7-3, 49ers 7-4. If you had to bet right now, though, I'll give you the schedules of both. Who wins the West in the end? The Rams going forward have the Bucs, at the Panthers, at the Cardinals, Lions, at the Seahawks, at the Falcons, Cardinals. The Seahawks have at the Titans, Vikings, at the Falcons, Colts, Rams, at the Panthers, at the 49ers.
Oh, that Seahawks schedule is real nice.
Yeah.
That is a real nice schedule. I'm gonna say
one playoff team.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Seahawks because the schedule's a little bit easier and they got their Tampa Bay game out the way already. And you still have to go play Detroit if you're Los Angeles. But we're gonna come back down to this Thursday night game in Week 16 against the Seahawks. And that could be the NFC West Championship game. Like, it's just so cool. Like, this game felt like a playoff game. It had the intensity of a playoff game. Even though neither offense was super impressive,
I don't know. We lose JP.
Yeah, I think we might have lost him here.
We lost JP.
I'll play a break and I'll give him a call so we can rejoin. But it might. Oh wait, no, JP's back.
Okay, I'm back.
We lost there for a second, buddy.
Okay, it was a playoff game. The internet did not want me to talk about the Seahawks Rams, but I am back. That intensity. It was some of the coaching decisions. I actually thought Mike McDonald was a little bit cowardly in this game. And I also thought Sean McVay also made some really weird decisions on fourth down. They both sort of like traded punts in like the fourth quarter where I'm like, why would you punt there? And it just, you had those moments where like you kind of would want that back, but it's going to come back down to that Thursday night game. And the NFC West is going to be real fun.
Dude, that might be the biggest Thursday night game ever. I feel like you never get a good, meaningful Thursday night football matchup. It's always, I was going to be very denigrating. I was going to say Jags Titans is what I was going to say. That was like, that's the Thursday night matchup that always comes to mind.
That's valid.
But this feels like that'll actually be a nice one. So looking forward to that. All right. AFC West, flip conferences here, where the Broncos beat the Chiefs 22-19 at home. The Patrick Surtain-less Broncos take the Chiefs in another one-score loss for Kansas City. They are now 0-5 in one-score games this year after going 10-0 a year ago.
The margin for error for this Chiefs team is so razor thin this season. And I think everybody's sort of like, oh, well, the Chiefs are just going to make the playoffs anyway. And I think, yes, they probably will. But when you look at who you have to go through, including the Jaguars, who I'm not being a homer, but they play the Cardinals and the Jets still, and they still have both Titans games to end the season. They have the Bills in front of them. They have the Chargers in front of them. They've lost to all three of those teams already. And if they do split with the Chargers, you still don't have the tiebreaker over the Bills or the Jaguars. So you're constantly fighting this uphill battle in Kansas City. And it just feels like the walls are sort of closing in for this team. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like everybody on the team is playing really tight and playing real tense. I think the issues that the Chiefs defense had that we have tried to say, like, the Chiefs can't get pass rush. And with Chris Jones taking just a little bit of a step back, without anybody stepping up in the pass rush department, Bo Nix had all day to throw against the Chiefs. And although their secondary has improved, it's hard to cover for 5 seconds. It's hard to constantly chase guys around. There are going to be openings if you can't get pass rush. So without that pass rush and then just a really uneven Chiefs performance offensively, that creates losses like these, where the stars and the aces for the Chiefs, if those guys don't play their A game, these losses are very capable of happening.
Yeah, it felt like the team we saw, weeks 2 and 3. It felt like they reverted back to the old version of the Chiefs, like the weeks 1 and 2 version, where it just offense felt difficult. And then Mahomes played like a D Mahomes game. I mean, he had a lot of misses on throws that I can't say he always hits. Like they're difficult throws, they're downfield throws, they're deep passes, but he wasn't even giving his guys chances on some of them. So, and then you worry about this Chiefs offensive line just still not being good enough. Like it's not a bad unit by any means, but it's not doing them any favors seemingly week in and week out. And then they also still don't have juice at the running back position. So I think all those things kind of put together, and I just feel like they're going to be a little up and down because they have a receiving core that's kind of built to feast or famine, it seems like.
Yeah, it just feels like this team has there's so much boom or bust with this team. And I think it's because they just don't really have their go-to successful plays. Like even with the Chiefs last year, they were the most RPO heavy team in the NFL, where they would just tag every inside zone with a bubble screen. And that was their way of getting easy yards. They don't have access to those anymore. They can't. It's not even the fact they can't run the ball. They can. They just choose not to. They had 15 carries as a team in this game. Or not 15, they have 14. Kareem Hunt had 13 carries, an average 4.5 yards a carry. Like that's sustainable. 4.5 carries is good. And then they just never went back to it. I know Patrick Mahomes is great. He's phenomenal. One of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL. But that is a really unsustainable way to live. It's an unsustainable way to run your offense if you're constantly asking him to dig this team out of unsustainable passing situations when your offensive line also isn't playing well. Like you have to try and run the ball a little bit. You can't. Some of these RPOs just have to turn into straight handoffs. And I just think the Chiefs got to do a little bit of soul searching. They got to figure out what works for them offensively.
And I think this game to me was more indicative of something that, I thought was obvious since week 1, or I thought was obvious since this offseason, just when you looked at them on paper. It's that the Broncos are the more talented football team. They are top to bottom, the better roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, their offensive line as well. Yeah, they don't have great skill positions, but, Sean Payton's a fantastic head coach in terms of dialing up offense. So they can cobble things together. It really is just, how big is the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix? Is it so much that the Chiefs roster can still overcome, or that they can still overcome in a head-to-head matchup, the fact that you're probably at a disadvantage at a lot of different matchups? In this game, it wasn't. Like flat out in this game, it was not. Patrick Mahomes was not better than Bo Nix in this game. So when that's the case, the better roster is going to win. It's kind of what we saw in the first time they played last year. Because obviously Mahomes didn't play in week 18, but like Mahomes has to be Superman for this team to beat good teams this year.
And it feels like the Broncos, just to flip over to their side of the conversation, I sort of feel like the Broncos are real similar to the 2018 Bears, where like they have they have one of the best defenses in the league, phenomenal from top to bottom, and they have a quarterback who's just doing enough. And I think Bo Nix just does enough to win the game. I feel like this is another example of a game where Bo Nix you got to ride the roller coaster until the fourth quarter, and then everything sort of turns on for this team. I think this defense just got some really, really good timely plays and timely blitzes from Vance Joseph, who has been one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL this season. The 2 Daquan McMillan sacks were incredibly timed play calls, and he fooled Patrick Mahomes and the offensive line on one of them, where Daquan McMillan is just a free runner, and it ends up in a sack. So I think this Broncos team, like you said, they're incredibly well coached. They have impact players on the defensive side of the ball, and then offensively, Sean Payton can draw it up with the best of them. And I think Bo Nix for all of his warts and all of his warts that were on display in this game, you had all the weird footwork stuff. You had all of the misses downfield. He'll still make a couple throws where you're like, okay, this is where we're going to win the game. So as long as he does that, and as long as his defense is going to be this caliber of defense, they can make the playoffs. They can be a player in the AFC. I just don't know how far it'll take them.
I will not stand for a Bo Nix Mitch Trubisky comp. He's so much better than Mitch Trubisky. He's so much better. Now, I don't think he's what some Broncos fans think he is and what the record says he is. But like, I saw people calling for Jarrett Stidham last week. That was batshit crazy to me. Like he is not a top 10 quarterback. He's probably not a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, but he is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, and he's in year 2. And and you saw it in this game. There's some good things he did. The back shoulder throw to Troy Franklin and the final drive that's a big dog throw. I mean, that's not open. That's NFL open. You got to throw your guy open, and that's what he did. Now, did he do that intentionally? I don't know. That lives in Bo Nix's heart. We'll probably never know. But it's like he made the play when it counted, and I do think that when he has guys who are better playmakers, and I highlight Troy Franklin there because when I watch Troy Franklin, I see Bo Nix's version of Christian Watson, the guy who's just like, it should be better than it is, but he has terrible ball skills, just like such bad ball skills. And those guys frustrate the living crap out of me. And we'll talk about when we get to the Packers, because we got the good Christian Watson game this week. You got the awful Christian Watson game last week, but somehow he's making contested catches left and right this week. You're going to just have to live with that roller coaster this year. Hopefully they get him more talent in the future at receiver. But I think this Broncos team, especially when they get Patrick Surtain back, they feel like they can be almost the Seahawks of the AFC, and that their defense is just so good. If they play from a positive game script a lot, you can beat just about anyone because of that defense. And because probably like your quarterback won't probably make the boneheaded turnover to cost you the game. We'll see if that holds up for the Broncos down the stretch.
Something else that sort of popped up during this game, this was the first game without J.K. Dobbins. It was clear that they missed J.K. Dobbins. The Broncos ran for 59 yards on 21 carries, 2.8 yards a carry. R.J. Harvey didn't have a great day. Jaleel McLaughlin also didn't have that great of a day as a runner. If they're not able to hit on some of those runs, if they can't get the run game going, I am a little concerned about the sustainability of this entire thing. But like you said, they have a defense that when Pat Surtain comes back, they just have dudes at every level, and that can win you games, especially in the playoffs.
All right, let's take a quick break. After that, we got Bucs, Bills, Panthers, Falcons, and the rest of the Week 11 slate.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
No, that is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount+.
Bills put up 44 in a big win over the Tampa Bay Bucs, 44-32. The big number from this one, it's 3-3. That is Josh Allen's rushing and passing touchdowns. It was done. It's been undone only 3 times in NFL history, twice by Josh Allen. He did it last year as well.
This felt like a vintage King Chaos Josh Allen game where they embraced the Moon Knight meme, the random bullshit go meme. That's what it felt like Josh Allen was kind of doing. But the random bullshit works when you have guys who can win downfield. The Tyrell Shavers throw happens because Tyrell Shavers actually runs a 4-3 and can get downfield in a hurry. You have guys that are able to just go and make those plays. And then this game, it felt like Josh Allen sort of just took over the game. As a passer, as a runner, you could tell that he was, and it sounds cliche, but he wasn't going to let this team lose this game. And when Josh Allen is playing like this, where he's doing all of the crazy outside the pocket stuff, they put away the more controlled, calm Josh Allen and just like went full psycho, like that can put up points. That can, especially with a receiving core that's still sort of iffy. When you have Josh Allen playing like this, it's so hard to stop them.
Keon Coleman benched in this one. Didn't even play. Was he? Obviously, he wasn't like the reason. But could that benching spark more of this down the stretch? Was he a problem for this offense and his complete lack of speed there on the outside?
I don't know if he was a problem, but I do think Joe Brady relied on Keon Coleman being 6'4" in ways that I don't think Keon Coleman has actually proved he can win in the NFL, where they throw a lot of contested stuff at Keon Coleman, a lot of stop routes, a lot of comebacks, a lot of fade routes. And if you're not going to be efficient on those, they're just sunken plays. You're throwing the ball into the dirt every time it's a Keon Coleman contested catch situation. So without Coleman on the field, you relied less on contested catches and more just on Josh Allen creating and Josh Allen movement. And I think that this was a game where it was sort of for Joe Brady just realizing, like, dude, you have like a supernova on your hands at quarterback. You don't always have to play the uber control, like ball control and defense this way out, because quite frankly, the Bills don't have the defense to ball control the game. They don't have the defense to sort of just let teams like sit on them or run the ball effectively and not have Josh Allen play like this. So this should be a game moving forward that the Bills realize and use going forward, that they got a dude. And when you have a dude at quarterback, it can take you really far.
Yeah, I think lost in this big win is the fact that they gave up over 200 rushing yards to, Sean Tucker, when he's rolling, he is one of the most fun running backs to watch in the entire NFL because he is a true physical freak. I mean, he remember when he posted his pro day on Twitter?
Yeah.
And he wrote it said like 4.29 for his 40, or it said something just like insane. I kind of believe it. And every time I watch him in the open field, I'm like, oh, wait, he actually might run a 4.29. He ran away from Maxwell Hairston in this game. Maxwell Hairston ran a 4.3. He ran away from him. So he might actually be a 4.29 running back.
And the Bucs were pulling out some nasty stuff on the ground. They on Sean Tucker's first touchdown, they're doing a counter, but they pull Graham Barton and Tristan Wirfs to the backside. And Tristan Wirfs just absolutely decleats Jordan Poyer. And I felt bad for Jordan Poyer because, like, you see that big dude running around the tracks, and you are the in his sights. Just get out the way. Just move. And Tristan Wirfs moved Jordan Poyer for him. And it was hilarious because they did the same thing for Sean Tucker's second rushing touchdown. So I feel like the Bills, and I feel we talked about this a little bit with the Bills team building. They built their defense on all three techniques and then wonder why they give up 200 yards on the ground. Like, they don't have Ed Oliver to sort of have the splash plays. And so now you're stuck with TJ Sanders, the ghost of Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips, and Deion Walker, who is a 3-tech in a nose tackle's body.
He was the single worst run defender I saw in college football last year. Like, truly.
Yes, he doesn't have a big lower body.
His pad level is 6'7". Like, that's just his pad level. His pad level is however tall he is.
Low. He does not get low. He's standing straight up to defend the run, and you got to go around him. But the problem is when you build this team with undersized 3-tech defensive tackles and undersized linebackers and undersized defensive backs who are also a little slow, this game is bound to happen. You are bound to get run over a lot. And I don't know if I say I leave this game feeling less confident about the Bills, but I still have a lot of questions about how high this Bills team can go. Even though the AFC is wide open, they've played one good game defensively against a team with a pulse, and it was Kansas City. So, and we talked about Kansas City's own problems offensively. Mm-hmm. So their team building, I just wonder if Brandon Beane is going to look in the mirror and be like, hey, we keep getting run over every single game that we play against a team that wants to run the ball. We should probably get some nose tackles in here.
I feel like he drafted like he wants Sean McDermott fired. Like he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get this guy fired, dude. Because just on paper, like it can't work. Like it truly can't work when you have 215-pound linebackers behind 3 techs up front. Like it can't stop the run. If you really have a team that has a good offensive line, like if they played a like in this one, you really face a good offensive line. Now that the Bucs have Luke Edeke back, like it's a good offensive line. You have no chance. You really just don't have a chance with what they have.
And I thought it was really funny because I was thinking back to the NFL draft when the Bills told Tyleik Williams they were going to draft him if he was there. Obviously, he goes before to Detroit, and the Bills take Maxwell Hairston. So the Bills follow up in day 2 by taking the opposite of Tyleik Williams and TJ Sanders.
Yeah.
So it's like, where's your brain at? What's the process here? But this defense has philosophical issues defending the run, and that it's been the way they defended the run for years. But now that everybody's a little bit older, Matt Milano can't cover up a lot, and Matt Milano had a rough game today.
I do feel like an interesting thing about the Bills in the Bean era, he has not been great at like drafting for scheme. Like whether it was Kyer Elam, whether it was Keon Coleman, like some of the top picks, like at the time, people were saying that doesn't really quite make sense for what they want to do. And then you mentioned like the Tyleik Williams or TJ Sanders. That's one of those things where, as draft analysts, we try to be like, hey, like just because he says DT doesn't mean that they're necessarily just going to draft him. Like there's different types of DTs. Tyleik Williams is not the type of DT that TJ Sanders is. Like you said, they're polar opposite types. And so if that's what you were looking for, it ain't Deion Walker, and it definitely ain't TJ Sanders.
Yeah, it's like if you flipped what TJ Sanders does with what AJ Epinesa does, you would actually have a good run defense because they ask their edges to play so heavy in the run game, and they are good at setting the edge. The problem is all their defensive tackles are so light that they never have to run at the edges. They just run duo at you, or they run counter, or they run power, and you get run over every single time. So of course, long season, there's still the playoffs coming, but if this team once again falls short of the expectations, we got to start questioning what the team building philosophy is in Buffalo.
Yeah, well, it's hard to question. They won this game, so we'll give them their flowers for now. They're 7-3, back on track. But yeah, I agree. It just feels like a defense that is going to force Josh Allen to win shootouts, all playoffs. 3 straight playoff wins is what they're going to have to do via shootout. Can they do it? We'll see. I don't like the odds, though, given how this defense looks right now. Let's flip to the Bucs for just a second because they haven't looked good in a month, man.
Yeah.
They have looked ever since the 49ers game. That was October 12th, where they won 30-19, 24-9 against the Lions. They beat the Saints, but 23-3, lose to the Patriots, and then lose to the Bills. So lost 3 out of their last 4. It just feels like, even though they did beat the Seahawks, it feels like right now they are behind pretty much every other team atop the NFC, whether it's the Seahawks, Rams, Eagles, Lions, Packers. Like they just feel like they don't have the juice right now.
It feels like they have run out of answers in the receiving room. Mm-hmm. Like you can mask, and Baker Mayfield. I also think Baker Mayfield being hurt and playing hurt is also sort of why this hasn't worked. This was the first game he actually looked good scrambling in a month, which I think has affected the sustainability and the success and efficiency of the offense. But it's hard to consistently have to play week in and week out without your top 2 receiving options and your number 1 running back. Like the Bucs are constantly playing left-handed this season, and it's forcing them to find different answers. But it's just at some point you run out of answers throwing the ball to Tez Johnson, who has played fine in a little bit of an expanded role, but he's also a wide receiver 4. Like, he's a wide receiver 4 for a reason. Emeka Egbuka has seen much more attention this season than we thought he would coming in, because we thought going into this season why he would work with the Bucs is because he is such a good wide receiver too. Yep. Like, he is a high quality wide receiver too, who may not be the focal point of a receiving game. And we've seen that with Egbuka as the focal point of a receiving game, it just doesn't look the same. And I think Baker Mayfield, in turn, with not having all the receiving options available, he's just he plays with the zoomies. And that's always been Baker Mayfield. He's always going to play real amped up. But if he's not hitting on those, if the amped up stuff isn't working, you're just turning into inefficient football. So I'm a little worried about how far this Bucs team can go without their stars. But I mean, right now they just need to get healthy.
Yeah, they do. They just need to get back healthy, and then we'll see where their ceiling can push. All right, let's get to another NFC South team. Panthers go to Atlanta, win 30-27 in overtime. And the number from this one, 448. Bryce Young, listen to the pod apparently, where we're ragging about him and his pace for yardage and how it's one of the lowest of all time. 448 yards, not only a career high, that broke Cam Newton's franchise record for the most in a single game. That was more than his previous 3 games combined. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure that's happened in NFL history. Someone's gone for more passing yards in one game than their previous 3 combined, being healthy in all 4 of those games. Bryce Young did it. Maybe it's just week 11 on Bryce, because week 11 on last year, he was PFF's 6th highest graded quarterback. That was like the stretch that sold everybody. Do you think, is he going to do the same thing again? Week 11 to week 18, do we just bench him from now on weeks 1 through 10? And then week 11 through 18, it's like that, it's Bryce Young time.
So this furthers my theory that NFL teams should have quarterbacks that work like starting pitchers in a rotation.
Yes.
Where you just bring out a different quarterback every week. Like, if you're playing a team that plays a lot of cover 3, you have a quarterback who does a lot better against cover 3. You play him against that team. Bryce Young is only good after week 11. So I guess you just cannot play him until week 11. But I mean, where the hell was this the whole season? And maybe it's because you had Jalen Coker back and you had your full complement of receivers. But this was an incredibly gritty and incredibly tough performance by Bryce Young, who also left this game due to injury to his ankle. Yeah. But you just saw the timing, the poise, the fourth quarter was incredible. Like, he was hooping in the fourth quarter. And it's encouraging to see, but it's also like, why does this never happen earlier? Like, why is this always happening in week 11 against the Falcons? So I want to see it more, but this is a really good step for a Panthers team who, I guess, like 6-5, like, hey, still in it.
Still in the hunt, technically, even though it's just like they just don't feel in the hunt. They don't. I'm gonna admit they don't feel in the hunt. But they're a half game back at the Bucs, half game back for the lead in the NFC South. Not just like we're kind of in the, it's like they are half game back for the division right now. Concerning on the flip side though, Falcons, they not only fall to 3-7, Michael Penix more time. Doesn't look like it's serious, but obviously given his knee history, any knee injury is worthy of concern with him. He tore his ACL twice in college. Drake London, knee injury as well. Not serious reportedly, but that's your offense right there. That has been your offense seemingly. And without them, I mean, just tie a bow on this season. And unfortunately, it's time to start thinking about this coaching staff and front office and their futures there in Atlanta with how this season's gone.
For some reason, Bryce Young just owns the Falcons defense. Like, if we're going back to last season, both games against the Falcons this season, Bryce Young just cooks Atlanta. And I wonder why the Falcons do what they do, like why Raheem Morris and why Terry Fontenot have done what they've done. But if we want to continue to go back to when they made that trade, giving up their first round pick next year to the Rams to trade for James Pierce, It was made on the bet that they were going to be a playoff team. This was the year. They finally had the quarterback. They had the receivers. And now they had the pass rush to complement it all. The pass rush has been there in spurts, but this team isn't good enough. Like this team isn't coached well enough, honestly. Like they just feel like they're always on the back foot against everybody. And that comes back down to, coaching. That comes down to the team building aspect. So with this team being 3-7 and also not owning their first round pick, by the way, if the season ended today, the Rams would be at the top of the division in the NFC West and also have a top 10 pick.
Oh,
which, come on, man.
Pick number 8 overall is what it's slated at right now.
Come on, man. Why do we keep doing this? So if this season ends and Atlanta is in position for another top 10 pick, I feel like you got to go a different direction, both GM and head coaching wise.
Yeah, you can't trade a future top 10 pick for James Pierce. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't bottom out. You can't be going the wrong direction like this in year 6 of the Fontenot era when you've never made the playoffs. Like you never have built a roster that's made the playoffs. And I think the most damning part of all of it. But I've seen a lot of cope from Falcons fans, and I get it. Like your draft was great. Jalen Walker is exceptional. Xavier Watts is a great player, but James Pierce is not like a down-to-down awesome player just yet. Like we don't have to get crazy on it. I believe in the potential. He's obviously a freak athlete, but you would 10 times out of 10, anyone who's evaluated Pierce's play this year, you'd rather have the number 8 pick in the draft. You flat out would. And it's not a great draft. I'd still rather have the number 8 overall pick in the draft. So we don't have to cope too hard about that. But the Falcons, man. Yeah, I'm with you. You just, something has to change there. I do think it's got to be GM though related, even if this was a good draft. And I thought this offseason, they started heading in the right direction. There's just holes still. We're this far into there and there's still glaring holes on this team that is why you're 3-7.
Yeah. And the big things with Terry Fontenot that we're always going to come back to, it is paying $180 million to Kirk Cousins for him to not be good. Then drafting Michael Penix in the first round, in the top 10. And he still looks like there are question marks and has also had 2 knee injuries again. So you had to go back to Kirk Cousins, who looks awful, and you are still paying $180 million. And then it's the James Pierce trade. It's those 3 in a row where it feels like misevaluation of what you are right now as a team.
That's what ultimately we say to bunch. Those GMs in more often than not. All right, Jaguars, Chargers. Here it is, your red meat, JP. 35-6, a blowout win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's hear it.
So my number for this game, initially, it was 49%, the Jaguars' success rate on the ground. But I also have another number. 2022, because that is the year of the last time the Jaguars scored 5 or more offensive touchdowns in a game until today. This is the first time they've scored 5 touchdowns in the game since 3 years ago. I was still in grad school at that point. So, and I remember the game. It was against the Cowboys. It was the Cowboys comeback where they scored 5 touchdowns, and it was the first of the when they made the playoffs that year. But this was bell-to-bell domination. This was the exact type of game that you wanted to see if you are a Jaguars fan. You want to see how this team will respond after one of the most catastrophic losses in franchise history. This is how you respond. They whooped LA's ass up front, just straight up. And it wasn't even like there were a lot of explosive 15, 20, 30-yard runs. It was a 49% success rate. That's the second highest they've had per True Media, second highest success rate they've had in a game this season. They just hammered them with split zone, with zone tosses. I thought Bishal Tootin had his best day as a Jaguar, and the contact balance.
In that one, because he looked awesome.
the contact balance that he showed in this game, he ran Elijah Molden over, and I got visions of another running back in the 30s, undersized, bowling over guys with low contact balance and with low center of gravity. I'm like, oh, let's get this started. Like, let's really hype this up. Travis Etienne had a great game, and I thought Trevor Lawrence, outside of the goofy interception where he threw it late on a field out in the first half, I thought the second half was great. And you could tell that his confidence in Jacoby Myers is growing a lot, where they're doing a lot of where Trevor Lawrence wins is the middle of the field, the mid-range stuff. He threw smoke on a lot of digs in this game. He was throwing speed outs to Jacoby Myers because he trusts him to win in those contested situations, in those tight window situations, and that's why you made that trade. But this Jaguars team, when they're able to run the ball effectively, Ezra Cleveland came back and was awesome. If they're able to run the ball effectively like this and sort of, I'm not going to say minimize the quarterback, but make sure that he doesn't always have to throw the ball in like 3rd and 12s or like 3rd and 10s. You don't want to put him in obvious drop back situations because you're masking the inefficiency of the offensive line and the quarterback as well. When you can do that, they're going to win a lot of games, and they house the Chargers today.
Yeah, and their defense, I mean, this was one of Justin Herbert's worst games of his entire career. He goes 10 of 18, 81 passing yards with an interception. I mean, it was an ugly interception. That one was all on Herbert, but it kind of feels like this team right now, given the state of that offensive line, is just like they're not really built to compete. It is a minor miracle that they're a 7-4, honestly.
This is the 3rd time in Justin Herbert's career, according to NFL Pro. It's the 3rd time in Justin Herbert's career that he's had a 50% or more pressure rate in a single game. That does not feel sustainable at all for Justin Herbert in his career. He was pressured on 52.2% of his dropbacks, 3rd highest rate of the season. Like that is not sustainable at all for anybody. Trevor Penning was losing every single time. I thought the perfect
play. He
went
for his 6th. Offensive tackle going for his 6th.
And it got to a point where they had to put back in Deculus at left tackle because Trevor Penning was getting worked. There was a play in this game that I think encapsulates it perfectly. It was a flag, which I thought was kind of stupid, but 4th down, BJ Green absolutely works Trey Pipkins, and Justin Herbert goes to throw the ball, and he gets flattened. Like, it's like a spine buster. Like, it's a WWE level move. He gets flagged for roughing the passer, but there's also a flag on the offense in that play. I also think it was holding. Or, no, it was a legal motion because I think Trevor Penning was lined up too deep into the backfield, which, again, like, that's why he goes for a 6th-round pick. But it feels like the Chargers are teetering. It really does feel like this season is teetering on the brink of disaster, on the brink of this team is going to make the playoffs, because even outside of the offensive line issues, they can't stop the run. And if you can't stop the run and you find yourself in obvious drop back situations with that offensive line, this game is bound to happen more often than not.
Well, here's the thing. This team is just not talented. I know Jesse Minter, Jim Harbaugh are incredible head coaches. And like I say this, they're not talented as to like give them credit, but like you go through just who's playing snaps for this defense. Like here are guys who have played at least 200 snaps for this team this year. Benjamin St. Juste, Tony Jefferson, Justin Igboigbe, Bud Dupree, Troy Dye, Dante Jackson. Like you have a who's who of just like journeymen on this team. And we're expecting it to be like what it was last year, which was top 5 defense in the NFL. In the NFL, at the end of the day, at some point, it's going to come down to talent. And unfortunately for this Chargers team, like they don't have enough. They just flat out don't. This was not going to be their year. It was kind of a mini rebuild of a year. They didn't really add in the way they did last offseason. So I think we're kind of seeing that catch up when big injuries have struck to the guys you hope we're going to be your difference makers, specifically those 2 offensive tackles. It's like you're kind of seeing that there really aren't a lot of other difference makers on this football team.
It's a very harsh and brutal reminder that this team was one of the worst teams in the NFL 3 years ago.
Yes.
Like, they were horrendous, and it's taking Jim Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz, GM. It's going to take them a minute to bring them completely back. Making the playoffs was great last season, but like you said, they didn't really add to this team. And so you were sort of just hoping for a healthy year of Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. That hasn't happened. You're hoping for a healthy year of Khalil Mack. Also didn't happen. But the depth of this team, especially up front, is being tested. I think Tyir Tart, Jamari Caldwell, really cool players, very fun players on the interior. But those guys got to rotate in and out. You got to rotate those guys in. And they just don't have enough bodies up front at the end of the day. They added Odafe Owe. They have enough bodies on the edge, but they just don't got it in the interior. And that makes defending the run out of a light box, it makes it really hard.
There ain't a lot of big guys to go around. We've seen that a lot in the recent draft classes. We're going to see it a lot in this upcoming draft class as well. Now, last year's draft class, there's a lot of DTs. Hopefully you drafted one, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of help for a lot of teams in 2026. All right, let's get to Bengals Steelers. Steelers run away 34-12 on the backs of 2 defensive touchdowns for Pittsburgh. That's your big number for this one, but kind of masked in those 2 defensive touchdowns. Steelers scored the fewest points against the Bengals since the Browns in week 1. Only 20 points. Like, the Steelers offense didn't move the ball, and Aaron Rodgers leaves the game with a wrist injury. TBD on the prognosis, how long that'll take. But obviously, anytime it's any injury that takes you out of the game at that age, chances are it's not just a minor thing.
You could take away every point the Steelers offense would have scored in this game. They still would have beaten the Bengals. They still would have beaten this team. And I think it just goes to show you, like, yes, Joe Burrow's coming back after Thanksgiving. Joe Burrow is not saving this team. He's not. Like, what this season is over. It was over when Joe Burrow got hurt the first time. It's especially mega over now. Like, there's nothing saving this team. And from the Steelers' perspective, because that's really what matters. If Aaron Rodgers is hurt, like, to any extent, if he misses time, you're starting Mason Rudolph against the gauntlet of the schedule at this point in the season. You're starting Mason Rudolph against potentially Chicago, Buffalo, and the first Baltimore game. That's not great. That's not great, especially with Baltimore, although we're going to get to how Baltimore looked in this game against the Browns. We're going to get to them, but Baltimore's hot on your heels, and you can't have Aaron Rodgers missing time with potentially a wrist injury that's going to hold him out. So it's tough to say because they did win the game. Man, the Steelers' vibes are they're just awful. The vibes around this team have been awful since the beginning of the season, and it just feels like it's not going to get better if Aaron Rodgers is out.
Well, I feel like the kind of the things I just said about the Chargers and their defense is like the same way I feel about the Steelers and their offense. I'm like, they're just not good players walking through this door, unfortunately. You know, there's no turning it around because it's going to take guys who have never proven to be good all of a sudden becoming good. You know, like, it's going to take any wide receiver developing into a wide receiver too there, and just no one has. It's going to take Broderick Jones, like, learning how to play offensive tackle, and that's, you know, just not in the cards. Now, the one guy that maybe could be your difference maker, Darnell Washington.
Did you see the play?
It was one of the single coolest plays in NFL history. Like, that's not even joking. That thing was unbelievable. I'm watching it again right now because I've watched it like 10 times.
The Escalade got out in the move. I said he runs like an Escalade with the brakes cut. He stopped at 31 yards because that Escalade ran out of gas. But, man, he put Barrett Carter into the dirt. Like, that's just not fair. And that's a linebacker. Like, those guys are supposed to be able to cover tight ends. And he put him in the dirt. DJ Turner, unfortunately, catches, like, the end portion and just gets blasted away. Like, he took a hit in, like, Dragon Ball Z. It's one of the coolest plays I've seen this season because, man, just keep feeding that guy the ball just to see what cool shit he does.
It looked like, in Mario Kart when you get the star and just like you hit the other carts and they just like blow out of the way. They just like explode. That's what it looked like. They're just like the guys are just like exploding off of Darnell Washington. It didn't mix. I think Trevor Sikwa, I saw his tweet, said it looked like the Monster, like a Monstars football equivalent. Which was pretty apt.
It looked like you're playing with your younger brothers. Like it doesn't look like he should be on the same field as them. Like he's got to get aged up. You know how when you play like Pee Wee football and there's a kid who's like is not in that same age group and he's just steamrolling everybody. Somebody go get Darnell Washington birth certificate. I need to see something because you can't have him playing with these children.
Oh, dude, truly one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But the Bengals, I think the only thing I'm looking forward to was that graphic we put up earlier, 33.4 points per game. They're still allowing the most since 1970. Really hoping for a record-breaking season for them. But we got to talk about Jamar Spitgate because he claims he didn't spit. Jalen Ramsey claims he spit. But there's obvious video evidence that he spit. How are you even going to say no, I didn't? When there's obvious video evidence, let's hear. We have a clip from the locker rooms from both.
He spit on me, so it's up. I'm gonna get football after that, respectfully.
He was saying that you spit on him. Did you spit on him?
I ain't never opened my mouth to that guy.
What do you think prompted the reaction from him?
Well, he don't like some of the words I told him. We've been going back and forth the whole time, so I'm sure some got under his skin.
Just to be clear, you did not spit on him at all. That's what he's saying.
I ain't spit on nobody.
The overlay of him saying I ain't spit on anybody as we see spit, just like it wasn't even like a one straight shot. It was like two streams of spit going out. Like, come on, man.
I think he actually knew. I think Jamar Chase, smart man. I think he knew what he was doing going with the double negative. He say, I ain't spit on nobody, meaning he spit on somebody. And then he said, I didn't open my mouth, but you could spit without opening your mouth. I think he kind of like was beating around the bush. Like he had some phrases prepared that he could give himself plausible deniability while also not actually lying.
Jalen Ramsey being ejected for punching Jamar Chase for spitting on him. Look, man, I think sometimes you should be able to fight somebody just once. Every player should just get one fight in a game. Like you get to use it whenever you want. You can use it however you want, but you only get one a game. If you try to fight more, you're going to get ejected, but everybody gets one.
You know what I think? So obviously, like the justice for Jalen, that was one of the most unwarranted ejections. If someone spits on you, you have carte blanche in my eyes to do exactly what he did. But obviously Jamar Chase is going to get fined. We'll see if he gets suspended. If Jalen Carter will miss a game for a spit, like a full game, literally, I don't see why they wouldn't suspend Jamar Chase for similar behavior. But they're obviously going to fine him. I say the fine just goes straight to Jalen Ramsey. That would be an equitable way to do this. No one's going to be spitting on anyone anymore, knowing that if they spit on someone, that paycheck that they're losing is going directly to the person they spit on.
See, I like that, but I also think they should be allowed middle of the week just meet. We gotta scrap it out. Like you want to spit, well, we gotta fight. It doesn't even have to be in the field during a game. You gotta be ready to fight.
I feel like the NFL has an opportunity on their hands. You know how they're always trying to make money like around the game with like whether it's reality TV, like the Hard Knocks stuff in season. I feel like boxing match post like off-season boxing, like NFL sanctions boxing matches between guys who like really hate each other. So if like Jalen hates Jamar and they both say, yeah, I'd actually like fight this out. You let them just actually fight it out in the offseason. And that's a NFL sanctioned event.
George Pickens becoming the Muhammad Ali of NFL.
He takes like 8 fights every offseason.
He's showing up like the freaking Akatsuki. He is ready to scrap with anybody and everybody.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point. is that it would get abused by certain NFL players. Maybe it's not the best idea. All right, let's get to the other AFC North game that happened. Ravens-Browns. Ravens win, albeit not impressively. 23-16. They need Shedeur Sanders basically coming in and throwing that game away for them to come back and win that one. The big number from this one, though, it's 10. That's how many sacks Myles Garrett has in the last 3 games. He had 4 sacks in this one. He's on pace for 25.5 sacks.
Jeez.
Just give him the Defensive Player of the Year right now.
Oh, he's running away with Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think it's close at this point. Like I said going in, if he was going to win Defensive Player of the Year, he would have to break a record. And I mean, he's probably going to do it. I mean, if you look at who Cleveland has left on their schedule, they have the Raiders, 49ers, Titans, Bears, Bills, Steelers, Bengals. He could get the 30. Honestly, like if he keeps playing like this, he probably could get 30 if he really wanted to. This game, I want to believe in the Ravens so bad, but every game they remind you how incredibly flawed this team is. And I think for me, it starts with their offensive line. They're just soft up front.
Yeah.
Their guards, Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele, they can't generate anything on the ground. And that's the biggest difference between last season's team and this season's team, where they could just lean on their ground game to be effective. I don't think they have that opportunity anymore because their guards have been so poor. And then with Lamar as a passer, you're giving up quick pressures on the interior, which is never a good thing. So even though like Lamar, obviously they figured it out. They're able to figure out, and Lamar Jackson was really good in this game outside of, well, not really good. I think outside of just some real weird plays. I think both his interceptions were on tip passes.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny. But I want to believe in their talent, but what they're showing on the field is like, man, it's going to be tight if they want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, honestly, no one in the AFC looks good. Like no one in the AFC looks good right now. No one's really looks like a complete team. So even if they look not that great, they're still in the hunt. And I think all you really need to be is in the hunt right now in the AFC if you're the Ravens, and hope that you kind of figure it out when it matters most. But I do have to talk about Shedeur because obviously the hot button topic of hot button topics. I have not really too much to add from like an analysis standpoint. His stat line kind of tells the story. He went 416, 47 yards, 1 interception, 2 sacks, an intentional grounding, negative 0.67 EPA per play. Kind of like all the things that people said, like, hey, he kind of does, he drops super deep. He holds on to the ball. He's got kind of a mid to below average arm. They kind of all were on display in this one.
Yeah, I think in this game, if you're looking for positives for Shedeur Sanders, he had a couple of really nice throws on the potential game-winning drive. The dig route to Fannin was sick. Yeah. It was a sick rip, and it was one where I was like, please just throw it to Njoku, because the pocket was closing in, and something that he did was he stood tall in the pocket and made the throw. I think that's something for him moving forward. It's okay to stand tall in that pocket and take a hit. But I do think the Ravens sort of realize that he gets himself into a lot of pressures where he's gonna spin out and try and create, but I don't think he's a good enough athlete for that at the NFL level, and they just blitzed him. There was another throw to Gage Larvin, who like was a preseason guy, but is somehow trying to catch passes to win games against the Ravens. Beautiful throw on back shoulder. Chidobe Awuzie makes an incredible play to break it up, but it's that downfield touch that I think really stood out. So, I mean, he had a rough game just overall. But I also kind of think, like, I wouldn't mind seeing him again with a full week of knowing that he's a starter. And I know people are going to be like, they're going to take the quote of Shedeur saying he hasn't gotten reps with starters at all this season and be like, oh, what are the Browns doing? That happens with every backup quarterback. Like that's going to happen. They don't get starting reps because the team doesn't practice for the event that the starting quarterback gets hurt. But I would like to see Shedeur Sanders just with starting reps, with the time with the ones throughout the week, because I do think there's some things that like, hey, we can make this. We can see if we can make this work. And there are no stakes. The stakes are very low for this Browns team. There's no pressure. The backs aren't against the wall. They're probably going to draft a guy. They're still going to draft a guy. There's nothing. Now, I'm not saying like Shedeur Sanders should be their guy moving forward in 2026, but just see what he's got, especially if Dylan Gabriel's going to be out for a long period with a concussion. Like, I hate to say, like, who cares? But, like, the season's over. You might as well see what you got.
Yeah, you're sitting at 3 right now. Ideally, you want to be at 1 when the season's all finished, right? You don't want to be holding the number 3 overall pick with the Tennessee Titans at 1, because all that means is you're going to have to trade up to get to number 1. You're going to have to probably give up that other first-round pick you got. You kind of want that one. You kind of need that one, too, if you're the Browns right now. So Shedeur doesn't give you a terrible chance of getting to that number 1 spot because the sacks, the holding on the football looks like it's a big problem right now. And the guy, he does not look like he's attempting to play a different brand of football than what he played at Colorado. That just ain't going to work behind the Browns offensive line. That could work if you are playing behind Philly's offensive line. A few different offensive lines out around the NFL can work. It just ain't going to work behind the Browns offensive line right now. We have to talk about, though, did you see Josina Anderson's timeline during Shedeur Sanders' game?
I saw one tweet. The against all odds 3rd and 10 where like Jerry Jeudy's wide open and Shedeur does like create a little pocket for himself to get the ball to Jerry Jeudy, who I did not know Jerry Jeudy had that in his bag in terms of yak.
Yeah, he turned it on.
Like I was like, where did you learn this? How did you unlock this level?
That was Alabama Jerry Jeudy. He hasn't done that since his sophomore year.
Yeah, I'm like, when did you turn back the clock? But I mean, look, it's not an against all odds play. That was not even the most impressive completion that he had in this game. You could have clipped any other completion, or even you could have clipped.
No. Here's the thing, though. She did clip every completion he had. So that's why we had to talk about it.
You could have clipped the Larvidan throw.
Did not clip that one though. She was like, pure completions to gas it up.
Like that would make sense to gas up, even though it was a great play by Awuzie. It was a good throw by Shedeur. We don't have to gas that up. Like it's okay. It's a fine play. We can just move on.
He's just gonna be one of those quarterbacks that no one is ever going to say what's actually like. It's just gonna be completely polarized one way or the other, and the truth's always going to be somewhere in the middle. And unfortunately, you're only going to see the people with hysterical takes on either side because that's what generates. I mean, her post got like 1,000 replies to it. It's just ridiculous. All right, we got to take a break. We got a bunch more games to get through. We're running along. We'll be back with Commanders, Dolphins, Packers, Giants, the rest of the slate right after this.
Hi. Novocaine?
Novocaine! Novocaine is now streaming on Paramount+.
You're gonna love this.
Oh, you're strong! It's wildly entertaining and an absolute blast.
I'm in.
Novocaine, rated R, now streaming on Paramount+.
All right, the Madrid game. Commanders, Dolphins. Dolphins win 16-13. And the big number for this one, it's similar to the big number for the Chiefs. It's 0-3. That is the Commanders' record in one-score games this year, after going 8-2 in one-score games a year ago. They're fickle. As much as you think you can win them consistently, the data says more likely than not, you cannot. And the Commanders really feeling it this year.
This was one of the most miserable endings to a game I've ever seen. This was an awful game. Like,
It felt like they were both trying to lose.
It felt like both teams should just get left in Madrid. Like we should be able to award both teams with a loss, but the Dolphins were able to come out with a win. I think this was sort of based on the fact that Devon Achane is awesome. Like his speed is so game changing at the running back spot, and all the Dolphins did was just run crack toss and just get the ball to him in space, get a lineman out in front of him, and we're turning into a punt return. We're turning into a kick return. You don't have to read any vision. You don't have to use any vision. You don't have to read out any blocks. Just go. And the Commanders just couldn't keep up. Like there was no way they were going to be able to catch any of the Dolphins' core players like Jalen Waddle. Although Jalen Waddle had a couple drops in this game, you weren't able to catch Devon Achane. So that's really the extent of it. I thought that Jordan Phillips, the rookie defensive tackle for the Dolphins, had a pretty good game, but somehow Dolphins are 4-7, and they're playing hard for Mike McDaniel. So maybe that keeps him around in 2026.
I did audibly gasp when Bobby Wagner had a pass breakup on a crosser from Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle running a crosser and Bobby Wagner broke it up. I was like, what year is it? I thought, I woke up at like 7 a.m. in California. I thought I was in a different year altogether watching that. But I want to talk about the decision just very briefly here because, again, this game's not going to factor into much. But in the post-game show, all they wanted to talk about was the fact that the Dolphins went for it on 4th and 1 with 1:44 remaining when it was a tie game, didn't get it, end up obviously winning the game. But all they wanted to do was harp on that decision. And now, like, you could say, maybe it was just like you're 3-7 football team heading into this game. And it was just kind of like, we want to score a touchdown. We don't really care sort of decision. But I actually think that is the right decision in that moment. It is 1:44 remaining. You kick a field goal there. You give the ball to them on, somewhere between the 25 and the 40 is where they're probably starting. They need to go 30 to 40 yards in 1:44 to just kick a field goal and tie it. They went on the drive after that 51 yards. The Commanders did from the 2-yard line. They had a long field goal. They missed that long field goal because they didn't have great starting field position on that drive. And so they didn't score. And then one of the options is exactly what happened, that you play overtime and you win. Like the Dolphins still won the game. And so like to harp on that decision when one of the winning scenarios is you still taking it to overtime and winning in overtime, I think in today's NFL with the way kickoffs are, that is the correct decision to make in that moment in time. Make them go either 70 yards after you don't get it to kick a game-winning field goal in 1:44, or make them go 70 yards for a touchdown. Don't give them 40 yards for a field goal to tie it. I just think that's how the game should be being played right now.
So I understand what you're saying, and I've sort of pivoted from I thought they should have kicked it, and hearing you explain it, I understand going for it. I don't understand running it up the middle when you are the worst short yardage team of the last 4 years.
We can question that.
And again, it's this with Mike McDaniel. It's always the Dolphins are one of the worst teams when it's goal to go situations or it's 4th and 2. They're so good at 1st and 10 or 3rd and 10, they can never convert 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 3rd and goal, 4th and goal. Because they're just, when you have so many light offensive linemen, Aaron Brewer, under 300 pounds, he had a really good game in terms of movement and space. That's what he does. But when it comes time to actually go and like drive block somebody, you're not picking Aaron Brewer to do that. So you just worry about this team in short yard situations because they can never generate anything on the ground. And even with Ollie Gordon in the backfield, you lose 2 yards.
I do worry what's going to happen when they don't have Mike McDaniel, though, because they kind of got built specifically for Mike McDaniel, right? Like they are, from how they built the offensive line to the receiving core to the running back room. It's like, that's kind of like, it's by design that they can't run up the middle is because they don't really, that's not the running game whatsoever in the open field. And so it doesn't translate to those. They've never had answers for those. They might have better answers if they had like a more mobile threat at quarterback, but obviously Tua is what Tua is. But yeah, I don't think for everyone thinking that maybe McDaniel's the issue, and I still do think as a head coach himself, there are issues. I think the offense takes a big step back, though, if you get anyone else in the fold next year, unfortunately.
I think it's because that this is the best offense for Tua. Yeah. Like we can have this conversation about what offense is best for Tua, but this is it. It's one that maximizes the quick passing game and the timing that Tua can play with, because he's a limited athlete. He's a very limited passer outside the numbers. It's just, you're so combined. Like, it feels like we're talking about Kyler low key, but in different ways with Kyler. It's obviously with Kyler, it's you can throw outside the numbers, can't throw over the middle of the field, and as a runner, Tua is like the inverse of that. So this is the only offense that really works for him.
Inverse Kyler. Put them together. Oh, there's your idea you floated at the top of the show. Relief pitchers.
Yeah.
So you get one guy to throw, like, play to play. Hey, we're gonna call something over the middle of the field. We need to bring Tua in. We're gonna go sideline. It's Kyler time. I think it could, or like honestly, just have them both out there at once.
The Bears do that. They have Bajan and Caleb Williams on the field at the same time. You know, Ben Johnson, revolutionary.
I think it could work. I'm actually. That's the most intriguing idea I've heard for Kyler and Tua next year, is to just play them both at the same time. All right, let's get to Packers Giants. Packers win 27-20. Not pretty. It was tight down the stretch. The big number from this one, it's two big numbers. It's 7. That was the amount of drops the Packers had offensively. And it's 3. That's the amount of drops they had defensively. They dropped 3 picks from Jameis Winston in this one. I was thinking about it, and I think, did you play Pokemon growing up?
Yes.
The OG. The Packers are ditto. They are, as soon as they show up to a game, they turn into exactly as good as the team across them. No better, no worse. They are exactly as good as whatever team they face. They are ditto.
I just don't understand why the Packers are the way they are. Like, what are you doing playing, like, needing a late drive to go up on Jameis Winston? And Jameis Winston almost threw you 3 picks. Jameis also almost beat you. Like, you almost got the Jameis game. Like, you know how the Browns lost to the Steelers in the snow with Jameis last season? This was almost the Jameis game. And man, Matt LaFleur is so lucky that this was not the Jameis game, because coming out of the Eagles game on Monday night and then losing to the Giants, I don't know if he would have survived a day in Green Bay. But again, the issues with the Packers feel like the same issues they had last year, where if they're not successful running the ball, the receivers just aren't trustworthy enough. And you know, we can keep saying, like, oh, this is the youngest team in the NFL. Eventually, those young guys have to start producing, or else you're just a bad receiver core. If you keep relying on young receivers to grow up, it's been 3 years. It's about time they grew up. So I just wonder where they go next with that group, because they're obviously talented, but there's something that they're so inconsistent.
Yeah, that's why I was very encouraged, actually, that they added Matthew Golden in this year's draft. I thought they would avoid wide receiver altogether, because, like you said, that they've had these young guys for a while, and you had hoped that Romeo Doubs would stop dropping footballs, Christian Watson would start judging deep balls, that some of the holes in their game would get smoothed out. And you caught the good side of Christian Watson today. You caught a few contested catches from him for touchdowns. But the consistency is something that just is still some of the worst in the NFL. And that is, more often than not, consistency is, I don't want to say inherent, but, Larry Fitzgerald didn't drop passes at Pitt. Larry Fitzgerald didn't drop passes in high school. When you are consistent, you are usually consistent from day one of the time you start playing, major college football or whatever. So it's not something that you develop year 5 of your NFL career when you haven't been that your entire career. So we'll see. But wins at this point, I'll just say a win's a win for the Green Bay Packers team. They've had some stupid bad losses. You come out of this with a win with how many missed stops you had. I'll take it. We'll take it. Let's get to the Bears Vikings, the other NFC North matchup. Bears win 19-17. In actuality, though, I think the Packers and the Lions really won watching this game because both the Bears and the Vikings young quarterbacks looked disastrous in this one. But the big number, it's 5. This is the 5th win for the Bears this season. Your NFC North leaders, by the way, at 7-3. 5th win when trailing in the final 2 minutes. That is the most, tied for the most in a single season since 2000. The most for any team through 10 games in the last 45 years. They are living right this year.
That is your current number 3 seed in the NFC, Chicago Bears. Which is so, it's so funny. Like, of course, like we got to get Kyle to get his reaction to this Bears team. But I think in this game, despite how Caleb Williams played and how some of the numbers look, I think this game was a clear indicator of the gap between Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy. Caleb Williams and the Vikings actually got after Caleb Williams and this Bears offensive line. This was the 3rd highest pressure rate that the Bears offensive line has given up this season. But they weren't able to get Caleb Williams on the ground. And I think that part of his game, the sack avoidance, is one of the most magical things about watching any quarterback in the NFL this season. He just knows how to get out of situations that that most quarterbacks really can't get out of. Of course, you want the accuracy to improve, and I think there were a few plays in this game where Luther Burden drops a beautiful dig route. DJ Moore drops a couple beautiful passes from Caleb Williams. Of course, you want the accuracy to improve, but the fact that this offense has a floor with what they were able to do in the run game, they sort of mashed the Vikings in outside zone. They were able to get some really cool stuff from Caleb Williams. The fact that you have that is the clear indicator of the gap between Williams and McCarthy, who, man, it's looking rough right now.
No, I think that's a great point, is that Caleb gives you a baseline just from that alone, because that is so it's so high level. He is so good at just avoiding free runners, things of that nature, that he is going to move the chains far more consistently because of it, even if the inside of structure and the accuracy right now is leaving a good amount to be desired. I think that's also the scary thing about what he could be, is that what if that does develop to a high level over the course of the next 2 or 3 years for the Chicago Bears and under the tutelage of Ben Johnson? It's like that, you add that on top of what he can do outside the pocket, it just turns into, like what you see from guys like Josh Allen. So very scary there. Whereas on the flip side, it's like, for some reason, JJ just insists on throwing the hardest pass with the most bodies around him. He wants the level of difficulty just cranked up to 12. He was the kid who was playing on all Madden when he started playing Madden. He's like, no, I don't want to do rookie. Let's do all Madden. I'm getting my ass handed to me, but let's keep going. That's what it looks like right now, because he was terrible for 3. It was the same story as week 1. Right? Mm-hmm. This was the exact same game, except for you had a kick return at the end. They got the Bears in scoring position, but the exact same game of 3 quarters. And this one was even worse because it was literally just kind of one drive at the end that he had that was good. But the rest of this game was just really nothing. Misses left and right. Nothing positive to take away from it.
It's tough to say, because of course he has the one drive at the end that should have been the game-winning touchdown drive. But everything outside of that is so difficult for JJ McCarthy right now. And it feels like he's playing so tight and so I don't understand why he's constantly trying to put 100% into every throw. The Nashawn Wright interception should not have been thrown on a line. You're not. Why are you throwing that as a fastball?
Yeah.
It's open. It is an open play, and it should have been a touchdown. He's throwing it 100 miles an hour and letting Nashawn Wright get back into the play. And then there's just the miss to TJ Hawkinson was awful. There's just the footwork that's always messed up. He's always like over rotating when throwing to his left. It's all the stuff that we said was an issue coming out of Michigan hasn't been improved at this point. So now you're getting to the point where it's like, man, like, is this ever going to improve? Because you've had a year and a half to make this thing better, and it's just not getting better at all.
Yeah, very sad. When you have Chris Carter calling out him on Twitter, he said, so it was a quote tweeting Emmanuel Acha, who praised his last throw. He said, you watch the first 59 minutes? Oh, no. When you got a franchise Hall of Famer asking if you watched the first 59 minutes, it's trouble. It's trouble there in Minnesota.
Well, we have to account for maybe that was just 9. Maybe that was 9.
I think he needs to change numbers is what it is. He comes out in 2 next week and he's like, dude, 9 was a psycho.
9 was
like,
really
chill.
Bad. Everybody's
like a Buddhist monk.
He's just getting different variants of numbers.
He's got like 6 different jersey numbers, like depending on the week. He's like, yeah, I feel like he's like literally going down the schizophrenia rabbit hole, speed running it. All right, let's get to the last couple games here. 49ers, Cardinals. 49ers win 41-22. The interesting one from this, the completions record just got broken today, JP. Jacoby Brissett had 47 completions, breaks Drew Bledsoe's record for single game completions. Now it tied all-time regular season or postseason because Ben Roethlisberger had 47 in the 2020 wild card. But not a likely record to fall here, I thought, in a throwaway 4 p.m. slate game for the Cardinals and 49ers.
Jacoby Brissett dropped back 60 times. What are we doing?
He kind of went off, too. 452?
Like, come on, man. Like, the what? 46. I know Jacoby Brissett's arm got to feel crazy right now. Like, he's got, like, the Kobe thing where, like, his entire arm is wrapped in ice right now. I don't know how you do it, but Jacoby Brissett having the NFL completions record is going to be an incredible pull for somebody at trivia in like 2033.
Yes, that is actually because, I mean, and you'll have to know what team it was for too, because it could be one of like 8 at this point for Brissett. The other interesting note, Michael Wilson, 185 receiving yards, the most of any wide receiver in a game this year, apparently. Just a wild west of a game. And the 49ers won by 19.
It just didn't matter. There was a point in this game that I thought perfectly encapsulates the Brock Purdy experience. It's like 3rd and 10. Brock Purdy is rolling to his right, throws the ball back across his body to his left, and Christian McCaffrey high points the ball like a receiver in the middle of the Cardinals defenders, first down. He throws such confident bad passes. Yes. Like he threw a dig to Ricky Pearsall in this game.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Triple covered. There's no reason this ball should have even been thrown. But Brock Purdy's like, nah, I got it. I got this. And it's obvious it should have been an interception, but it wasn't. But he just, and I hate to say it like this because it's going to make me like sound like I'm trying to take away from everything Brock Purdy has done, which I am not. He is obviously a starting quarterback in the NFL. But he gets bailed out on a lot of stuff by George Kittle being amazing and Christian McCaffrey being basically a receiver in a running back's body. So I just want him to just tune a little bit of the stupid shit down.
I do think the NFC playoff picture, though, is shaping up to be very interesting because the 49ers are going to win double-digit games. They're 7-4. They have the Panthers, Browns, Titans, Colts, Bears, Seahawks left on their schedule. I see at least 3 wins. I think they could easily get to 11 wins, given all that's left on their schedule. That puts them at, let's say, 10-7. I think we all think the Rams and Seahawks are going to make the playoffs. We all know the Eagles are going to make the playoffs. We all know, say, the Bucs are going to make the playoffs. So that leaves at least 2 spots for the Bears, Packers, or excuse me, 3 spots for Bears, Packers, Lions, 49ers.
Man,
2 of those teams are going home.
This 49ers team making the playoffs would be the single most impressive thing Kyle Shanahan has ever done. For getting this infirmary 49ers team to the playoffs would be insane. But it is like what we said earlier when we talked about this team this season, was that they're probably going to make the playoffs just based on the fact their schedule is the easiest schedule in the NFL. And despite having major flaws on both sides of the ball, when you're playing the Titans to round out the season, you're probably going to make the playoffs. But it's going to be very funny when like one of the 3 NFC North teams ends up getting left out because the infirmary Niners made.
That's what I was like. There's a real world where the Packers or Lions are not making the playoffs. It's a distinct possibility that one of those 2 teams is left home because of the 49ers and because the Bears keep eking out these crazy wins.
What a wild year.
It is. It very much is. And let's get to the last game on the slate. Was objectively not a wild one. But the Texans did what they had to do, which is just get a win. 16-13, game with Davis Mills. You got anything for this one? Because I honestly, this was not on my watch list today.
Texans not dead yet. Sitting at 500. Got to win over the Jaguars already. I don't know how they're doing this. This defense just is incredible. And again, it's going back to what we said about this team. When the aces show up, it's going to be hard to beat them. When Will Anderson Jr. makes the plays that he did in this game, Nico Collins had 92 yards and a touchdown in this game. It's going to be really hard to beat this team when they have the stars that can tilt games like this. And needing a close win against the Titans is not great for their outlooks, but look, you survived the CJ Stroud missed games. If he does come back, and if he does come back soon, again, you're potentially looking at a really rough finishing part of the schedule with Buffalo, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Arizona, Vegas, LA, the Chargers and Indy to finish the season. But you survived the period without CJ Stroud. Now that you get him back potentially, who knows?
Yeah, I think their schedule is just a hint too tough, but they are putting to the test the theory that defense wins championships because they're the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. They are quite easily the best defense, and they could be left home. There's a very good shot at this rate. They're left home. Their schedule's it's just too much of a gauntlet. They have just not only the 2 Colts games, but then Bills Chiefs as well. It's just like they could lose the next 3 games, and they could all be like they give up like 12 points in each game to lose the next 3 games. So
when was the last time the number 1 scoring defense was left out of the playoffs?
Dude, were the Jets one of those years, the number 1 scoring defense when they had Saleh? It might have been. It just feels very difficult to do because if you're the number 1 scoring defense, just objectively, most years the best scoring defense is better than the worst scoring offense. So you should be a plus team. You got it? Did you get it? Did you find anything on last time?
I'm trying to find something. The first thing that came up was the 2010 Chargers, which every stat is a Charger stat. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. We might have to go ask
all right.
Research. But
we're gonna ask AI after this, and then we'll get to it next time we talk about the Texans. We'll find it out. All right. There you have it. Week 11 recap. We will be back on Tuesday going through power tiers as we always do and recapping a little Monday Night Football. Until then, keep pushing.